Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Yedida Levine Sterenberg. For the last 20 years, I'm a speech therapist, work mostly with children with complex communication needs. And I come from a village in Israel called Modi'in, and I'm a part of Omer Center for Augmentative and Alternative Communication at the National Center for AAC in Ezra Mitzion, and also I teach at the Tel Aviv University. And today we're going to talk about augmentative communication for beginning communicators. And beside that I'm a speech therapist, I'm also a proud mother of 4 children, young children. The oldest is 6 years old. So I have a lot of observation going on here in my home. And because of that, I can talk about this subject for hours and days. So let's begin. And most of the time when we talk about this group, the pre-verbal communicators, we tend to see them as one group, when actually it's not one group at all. It's not like there's a transition from the pre-verbal to the verbal. The child is not talking and then he's talking. Actually, there are many stages in the pre-verbal stage, and we have to be careful and identify those stages. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today. So I rely on these stages. These stages are based mostly on what I learned from Dr. Cynthia Kress, and also on the communication matrix. If you're familiar with this matrix, I love this matrix very much, and I strongly recommend you to go into the site and to know this matrix. So the stages are going from random movement into intentional movement, into intentional communication, and then into a transparent symbolic communication, and then symbolic communication. Okay, let's talk about each stage. So in the random movement stage, the baby's like saying, my body moves by itself. When I am excited or in distress, I don't really have any control over my body. My arms, my legs, my head are moving by themselves. I have nothing to do with it. And when I'm crying, my whole body moves together and I can't affect that. The next stage, the intentional movement stage, when the baby starts to understand that he can affect the physical environment. He can move objects, he can make toys move, and he's saying, I can affect my body and objects. When I reach my hand and touch a toy, it starts moving. When I look to the right, I see a wall. And when I move my head to the left, I see a window, and I owned it because of me. The view was changing. When I close my eyes, there's dark. When I open my eyes, there's light. So it was because of me. I affected the environment. I can make things moving. I can make changes. But still, although I understand that I can affect objects, toys, still I don't understand that I can affect the people around me, because human beings are much less predictable. When I touch a toy, it moves. But when I'm crying in my bed, sometimes my mother will come immediately. Sometimes she'll come after 10 seconds, sometimes after 30 seconds. Sometimes she'll come and pick me up. Sometimes she'll give me a pacifier. Sometimes my mother won't show up at all, and my father will come and pick me up. So it's very, very hard to understand the connection between me crying and the response of the human beings around me. So it's much more easier to understand the effect on objects than to understand the effect on people. And only at the next stage, the intentional communication stage, the child will start to understand that he can also affect the people around him. He's saying, I can influence people and use my voice and gaze to get them to communicate with me. I can look at my mother, I can move my arms, I can make noises, and then make my mother come to me. I can get her attention. And at this point, usually the parents are starting to say, he's doing it on purpose. He's satisfied. He just ate. He's okay. Just want my attention. He just want me to pick him up. And the baby is starting to know how to pull the attention, but still he doesn't understand that he can say something or put content into the conversation. He only knows how to get the caregiver's attention, but still he doesn't know that he can say something after he pulled the attention, okay? So I'm calling my mother, I'm crying, or I make noises, or I look at my mother, and then she's coming, but okay, why did you call me? What do you have to say? Nothing, I just wanted your attention. Please help me find out what is bothering me. The next stage, the transparent symbolic communication stage, we call it transparent because the child's starting to understand that he can say something, okay? It's not only getting the caregiver attention, but it's also saying something. And at this point, the child is starting to develop what we call joint attention, when he can split his attention between the adult and another object or action that he wants to share or to get. So he's saying, I wave my hand to say bye-bye. I put up my hand to say stop or enough. I bring my cup to ask for more water. I point out a photo to show that it's me. I recognize me in the photo. So at this point, the child is saying something, but it's very, very clear. And it's very easy to understand what he's saying because he's using natural movements and eye gaze in order to tell the people around him what he wants to say. So if he's pointing on an object, it's very clear that he wants to talk about this object. When he's doing this sign, it's very clear that he's looking for something, okay? When he pushes something, it's very clear that he doesn't like it, okay? He used natural, transparent signs in order to communicate his needs, and the needs are very, very simple. Only if he's trying to communicate more complex messages, he will need to go to the next stage, the symbolic communication stage, when the child starts to develop symbolic signs and words. He's saying, I say first words, I make gestures like more and let's play. I point at graphic symbols to express a specific message. At this point, children with typical development usually will say more and more real words, spoken words. But children that for many reasons can't develop speech at this point will learn to use more and more sign language and more use graphic symbols in order to express themselves and communicate more complex messages. So those are the stages in the pre-verbal stage, from random movement to intentional movement to intentional communication, and then to transparent symbolic communication, and finally to the symbolic communication stage. The question is, how can we evaluate our clients and know exactly in which stage our client is? So there are a number of evaluation tools for the early stages of communication. I'll give you some examples. If you're familiar with the Rossetti checklist, with the communication matrix that I mentioned before, part of the Carolina curriculum, if you're familiar with, and many other evaluation tools. But those tools are not assessment tools. It's not the situation when I invite a child to my room and give him all kinds of development tasks that to understand if he knows or doesn't know how to do that. I use observation, and I have to collect information from caregiver in order to fill in those evaluation forms, because those evaluation forms are more like checklists of skills from the natural environment. So I have to know the client very well in order to know in which stage exactly is in. So now, when I got to the point where I know exactly where my client stands, now I have to help him and find the right therapeutic intervention suited to the different stages. Now it's very important to find exactly what my client needs, okay? Because there are different intervention to the different stages. So let's see how I suit the intervention to the stage. So if I recognized that my child or my client is standing in the random movement stage, when he doesn't understand that he can control his body, and it's very important to say in this point that I'm not talking only about babies. I'm also talking about young children or older children that because of intellectual disabilities still are in the stage, okay? So I can see a child 5 years old, 6 years old that is still in the random movement stage, when he doesn't understand that he can control his body and make a difference. So at this stage, first of all, I have to ask myself, is there a way to know he's happy or not satisfied, unhappy? Is there a way to know, to understand his signs? It happens to me many times when I come into a classroom and I see a child screaming, and the teacher is saying, oh, go check in with him. What happened? Something happened to him. He's distressed. Look for the reason why he's crying. And the other teacher is saying, no, he's not crying at all. He's happy. He's screaming when he's satisfied. He's screaming when he's thrilled. And then the occupational therapist coming in and saying, oh no, it's just self-stimulation. He's crying because he likes to hear the high-pitched voices, and it's just self-stimulation. And it's very confusing for the caregivers, but especially it's very, very confusing for the child, because if we want to make him understand that he can control the environment, it's very hard for him that every member of the staff react differently to his screaming. So if we don't have an agreement on the non-intentional signs that the child make, we have to do an in-depth investigation and then write it down. Here on the right, you see an example of a poster that the speech therapist in a class for children with cognitive impairment hanged on the wall. And she wrote down what are the signs for each child for saying, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, or I'm not happy, I don't like this, etc. Okay, so there this let's have a look. For example, Daniel is saying yes by opening his mouth and saying no by pushing his hand. And Kathy will say yes by making eye contact and saying no by looking away. So each child has his own signs, and it's very interesting to say that sometimes one child can extend his hand in order to say, I want this, give it to me, but his friend at the same class will extend his hand, will make the same sign in order to say, no, I don't want this, take it away. Okay, so it's very, very important to know the children very well and to understand their signs. And then after I did that, I have to ask myself, what can I put in the area of the child that will enable him to experience the physical impact of his body? Okay, most of the children that I work with have physical impairment, so it's very easy, very, very difficult for them to experience influencing and moving things around them. So we have to give them more and more opportunities to do so. So we have here example, this child on the right is using eye gaze camera in order to draw a very simple drawing on the screen. And by that he feels the connection between his eye movements and the painting. We can also use VOCA in order to give the child the experience of influencing. At this point, I won't use it for a communication reason. I will use it only like for cause and effect reason. I want the child to push the button and then hear a song that he likes. And the example on the left, you can see my own baby. When I gave birth, my friend came to visit and she brought me a big bear with a big helium balloon. And I took it home and I tied the balloon to my baby's arm. And here in this video, he is less than 2 months old. And it was very, very cute to see how he started to understand the connection between his arm movement and the balloon. So he started to understand that when he moves his arm, the balloon is moving. And this very clear effect made him understand his capability to control and in fact affect the environment. Okay, let's see. I hope you can see this video. So after I saw that, I started to buy helium balloons for all my clients that's standing at this stage in order to help them understand easily the connection between their movement and the toy movements and the way they can affect the environment. And the third thing that we have to understand at this stage is that intentional movements start with feedback and then progress to feed forward. And what I mean by that, let's look at the baby on the right. The baby on the right will start sucking only when he'll feel the nipple in his mouth. He doesn't recognize the nipple and doesn't do anything in order to prepare himself to the nipple. He is reacting to the nipple. So we call it feedback. Only after I felt the nipple in my mouth, I started sucking, okay? But the baby on the left recognized the nipple, recognized the bottle, and already opens his mouth in order to get the nipple, okay? So I want to give my client the opportunity to show me that he recognized the stimuli and prepared his body to get the stimuli, okay? Preparing can also be rejecting, okay? Not always acceptance. So how can I do that? I will do that by presenting the stimuli in a pronounced and slow way. I will wait for identification, and then immediately I will give a response, okay? So I will bring the bottle in a very slow way. I will wait for the baby to show me that he recognized the bottle. And then immediately I will give the bottle and I will reinforce him for making something with his body, opening his mouth, and looking at me, doing something in order to let me know that he recognized it. Okay, so those are the main things that I would do in this stage. So let's say that I have a client that already moved forward and he is in the intentional movement stage already. So he clearly understands that he can affect the objects around him, but he still doesn't understand that he can affect the people around him. So I want to help him with that. So how can I pull him from the intentional movement stage to the intentional communication stage? How can I do that? I have to make a close attention to eye contact, to be aware to every attempt of the child to make eye contact. I have to keep physical closeness in order to give the child opportunity to look at me and to influence me very easily. At this point, it's very, very important to leave the toys and the objects outside, okay? At this point, my intervention will include two things, me and the child, okay? I have to keep clean dyadic interaction, okay? At this point, the child is like saying, I know how to manipulate and affect toys, but I still don't know how to affect you. And if you'll bring a toy to the room, I will concentrate on the toy. I won't be able to split my attention and to look at you as well. Let's look at the pictures here. On the right, we see a mother playing with her baby, and the ball is there, but they don't pay attention to the ball. They're playing, and it's very easy for the child to make eye contact and to look at the mother signing. At the picture on the left, we see a baby playing with balls, and she's very busy exploring them. And the mother is doing her best to get her child's attention. She leans down, she's trying to make eye contact, but the baby can't look at her at this point because she's busy. She can't split her attention between the balls and the mother. So this point, I will say, if I want to work on intentional communication, I will put away the toys, the objects, and I will only work on the dyadic communication. I will sing song, I will tickle the baby, and things like that, in order to make him understand that he can affect me. I will make enjoyable, repetitive activity, like pushing the child in a swing and stop and wait for him to show me that he's waiting for more. Although that he can't, at this point, he can't really say more or express more, but I want him to understand that he has to look at me and show me that he knows that I can push him again, the swing. I will make consistent responses to signs of spontaneous rejection or acceptance. Let's look at this picture. The baby clearly doesn't want to eat, so she's trying to push the spoon, okay? So right now, she knows how to affect the spoon. She doesn't know yet how to affect her mother. So she's pushing the spoon. And I want, the minute she does this spontaneous rejection movement and pushes the spoon, I want to react also and say, you don't want to take the spoon immediately, and to say, okay, you don't want the spoon, so I won't give you to eat anymore. And I want to give her the opportunity to understand that when she made this sign or made this movement, she didn't only affected the spoon, she also affected me. Okay, let's move forward. Now I recognize that my client is already in the intentional communication stage, means that he already understands that he can affect the people around him, he can affect his caregivers, he can pull their attention, but he only can make them come to him, but he can understand that he can put content in the conversation. So I want to develop joint attention, and I want to develop what I call transparent symbolic communication. So at this point, I will start with songs and hand recitations. I will use the voice output, but now not for cause and effect games, but for communication. I will use it for joint songs, for practicing taking turns. I will start working on joint attention with objects. Sometimes it's very, very hard for some of our clients to split their attention between me and the object. So I'll start with objects on the face, like with this nose. Okay, so when the child sees this very funny nose, it's very easy for him to split his attention between the nose and my eyes because they're very close. Okay, so he's looking at me and looking at the nose, and it's very hard. It's very easy for him to make this joint attention. I can also use eyeglasses or a funny hat, or play peekaboo, and start with those activities in order to help him not only enjoy the communication, but also enjoy it and talk about a third object. Okay. At this point, I will start first practice pointing at objects, and later at pictures in books, and first exposure to symbols, hand signs, graphic symbols. You can see here on the left an example from classroom kindergarten for children, young children with Down syndrome. The teacher attached a photograph of the Lego blocks on the Lego blocks box, and also small graphic symbols of very simple words like stop, more, clean up, play, build. So when she brings this box, she would point on the picture, on the photo, and will model the understanding of the connection between pointing at a picture and saying something. So she wants the babies and the children at her class to understand that pointing at a picture means saying something. Another example, here on the right, you can see what I call communication box. At this stage, I will bring a communication box and I will put in this box all kinds of objects that are meaningful for the child. And I will give him the opportunity to understand the connection between him bringing me something from the box and my reaction. For example, if he'll take the spoon and give it to me, I will give him something to eat. If he'll bring me the small ball, I will give him a full jar with little balls and we will play with the balls. So I want to give him the understanding that it makes a difference what kind of object he chooses. So at the beginning, he will just bring something unintentionally, and then he will get to the point when he looks for something specific. On the left, we can see an example for a communication tool that I built for a child with intellectual disabilities. I taught him to bring a spoon in order to say I'm hungry, to bring a cup in order to say I'm thirsty, I want to drink, and a toothbrush in order to say I'm done, I want to wash my face and brush my teeth. And this child didn't get to the next stage. It was very, very hard for him to understand symbols, but this stage already was very, very helpful because he used to scream when at meal times, and it was very, very helpful for his caregivers that they could understand what he wants. So let's say that my client already is in the transparent symbolic communication stage, and he already knows how to use his eye gaze, his hand movements, his voice in order to say things, point at things, make me all kinds of natural movements. And now I want him to make more complex messages. And he can do that by learning symbols. Okay, so at this point, I will start working on vocalization and words. I will intensively work on sign language if the child can move his hands. And I will work on symbolic yes and no signs. Okay, maybe till now he made natural movement to sign no, like this is no and this is yes. Okay, this is yes. But now I want him to make symbol signs for yes and no. No and yes. Okay, or to point at the no and yes graphic symbols. So I will make a structured practice with a desirable object and natural object when I will offer him the natural objects again and again and again while he can see that desirable object. And then he will have to practice the no, 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 no in order to get the desirable object. More examples here. On the right, you can see a toy when the child needs a ball and a hammer in order to knock the ball down and make it slide, I attached graphic symbols to the toy in order to help the child understand the connection between pointing at a graphic symbol and saying something. At this point, I won't start with communication board like we see on the left, because sometimes it's very, very hard for the child to leave the toy and look at a different stimuli, which means the communication board. I will start with toys that contains the graphic symbols already, like we see here down on the right. We can see play area in the kindergarten when where the speech therapist attach graphic symbols to the boxes, or here on the left a placemat, where the symbols, the pictures are attached to the placemat and near the plate. Okay, the teacher puts the plates here at the center of the placemat, and she's talking to the child while he's eating. So we can eat and look at the symbols and the pictures and understand at the same time. And only then I will start working with formal communication boards. So in summary, we saw today that it is very important to recognize and to know how to identify the communication stages, and to know in which stage the child is in. We said that formal and informal evaluations help us to be precise in identifying the stage. And we saw that the intervention must be suited to the stage that the child is in. It's very, very important. And many times the change will come from environmental changes. All the examples that I gave you were environmental changes, and not from practicing the skill with the child. Okay, we know that working at the natural environment will influence the child and will give him more and more and more opportunities to learn. So that's basically it. I want to wish you good luck. It's very challenging. It can be very, very hard sometimes to recognize the stages and to know exactly what kind of intervention to give at which stage. It can be very, very challenging, but it pays off. And I would love to get comments on this talk. This is my email. And thank you very much for attending this talk. Bye.